Every beautiful house has one part nobody compliments. Nobody walks through a finished living room and says, "Look at the stud spacing." Nobody photographs the beam hidden behind the drywall. Nobody points at the plain vertical member carrying weight from the roof, through the floor, into the foundation. They notice the surface. They notice the kitchen island, the paint color, the new fixtures, the glass doors, the furniture, the warm lighting, the things designed to be seen. But the thing keeping the house standing is usually not decorative. It is covered, it is quiet, it is doing its job without asking for attention. Money works the same way. The financial choices that carry the most weight are rarely the ones other people can admire. The payment that was never created, the raise that did not become a larger lease, the old car that kept $1,000 a month inside the structure, the employer match that was claimed, the emergency fund that prevented one bad month from becoming a high-interest spiral, the automatic transfer that happened before lifestyle had a chance to expand. Those choices do not look like much from the street. They do not make the driveway more impressive. They do not make the vacation photos brighter. They do not make a household look more successful at dinner. But they carry load, and that is the difference between decoration and structure. A house can have expensive finishes and still be weak if the load path is broken. A financial life can have visible prosperity and still be fragile if income arrives, passes through the house, and leaves with almost nothing retained. The mistake is that most people inspect money like they inspect a staged home. They look for surfaces, they look for signals, they look for the things that imply strength from the outside. A newer vehicle, a larger home, a better address, a kitchen renovation, a premium vacation rhythm, a constant stream of packages. The look of ease. But the structural question is different. The question is not what can be seen. The question is what is carrying weight. That shift matters because modern money culture trains people to inspect the wrong surface. Social feeds show outcomes, not load paths. A kitchen appears without the monthly payment attached. A vacation appears without the card balance. A car appears without the insurance, depreciation, interest, and opportunity costs sitting behind it. The visible frame is cropped so tightly that the structure disappears.
A load-bearing view widens the frame. It asks what had to be traded away to make the surface possible. It asks whether the decision added weight to the system or strengthened the member carrying the weight. It asks whether the household became more resilient after the upgrade or merely more photographable. Start with the ordinary millionaire problem. There are millions of millionaire households in America, too many to fit the stereotype most people carry around. If every millionaire looked like a movie version of wealth, the visual pattern would be obvious. Every wealthy household would be in a gated community. Every driveway would announce the balance sheet. Every outfit, kitchen, and vacation would confirm the number. But reality does not behave that neatly. A large share of wealthy households live in normal neighborhoods, in normal homes, with normal cars and ordinary routines. Some are high earners, some are not. Some have impressive careers. Some built the balance sheet slowly through decades of boring retention. From the street, many of them do not look like the story people expect. That does not mean appearance tells you nothing. It means appearance is a terrible structural inspection tool. A house can look modest because the owner has no money. It can also look modest because the owner refuses to turn every dollar of capacity into visible load. Those two households can look similar while being mechanically different. One household is constrained, the other is reinforced. The difference is the beam between income and spending. Income is not the beam. Income is the load arriving at the structure. Spending determines how much of that load gets transferred into assets and how much disappears into consumption. The retained surplus becomes the structural member. It is the part that accepts weight year after year. This is why income alone can fool people. A high salary can make a household look powerful because it increases the amount of material entering the house. But if every upgrade claims the material before it becomes structure, the wall stays thin. The roof may be larger, the rooms may be nicer, but the carrying member does not grow. A moderate salary with a durable surplus can do the opposite. It may look unimpressive, it may move slowly, but every year the beam thickens. Cash becomes investments. A buffer becomes protection. Automation becomes discipline that does not depend on mood. Time turns the invisible member into something strong enough to carry choices later.
That is why the ordinary-looking millionaire is not mysterious. The explanation is not secret genius. It is repeated protection of the gap. The gap is the distance between what comes in and what leaves. The gap is boring from the outside because nothing dramatic happens when it is protected. A payment does not appear. A lifestyle does not expand. A car stays in the driveway longer. A raise gets routed before anyone can feel entitled to it. But structurally, everything is happening. The load is being transferred. The point is not to romanticize being plain. Plainness by itself is not wealth. An ordinary-looking life can still be fragile if no surplus is retained. The point is that ordinary surfaces create room for extraordinary structure when the gap is protected long enough. The boring part is not the goal. The boring part is the cover that lets the beam do its work. This is why two households can have the same outward rhythm and completely different futures. Same neighborhood, same schools, same grocery store, same weekend routines. One is slowly converting income into ownership. The other is converting income into a nicer version of the present. The difference may be invisible for years, until time exposes the structure. Use two households as a clean inspection. Walter earns $85,000 a year. Not poverty, not elite. A solid income. If Walter keeps 20%, he retains $17,000 a year and routes it into productive assets. Denise's household earns $250,000 a year. From the outside, Denise should win easily. Higher income, more optionality, more room to upgrade, more visible proof that life is working. But if Denise keeps 5%, the retained amount is $12,500 a year. Walter earns far less and still sends more structural material into the system. That is the part most people miss. The market does not care which household looked richer. The compounding engine does not award bonus points for nicer finishes. It receives the dollars that arrive. If Walter sends $17,000 and Denise sends $12,500, Walter is building the thicker beam. This does not mean income does not matter. Income matters a lot. A larger roof gives you more potential load to transfer. A higher income can make structure easier to build. But potential is not structure. The structure is built from what stays.
That is why visible prosperity can be a misleading inspection report. A household can have a high salary, a premium vehicle, a large mortgage, upgraded furniture, and a lifestyle that photographs well, while almost no surplus survives the month. Another household can have an ordinary house, an older car, simple routines, and a balance sheet getting heavier every year. From the street, the first household may look stronger. On the load calculation, the second one is carrying more. The problem is not that spending is evil. The problem is that people confuse upgraded surfaces with upgraded structure. They assume that because a household can afford the payment, the decision must be structurally safe. But affordability is not the same as load capacity. A wall can carry some extra weight until it cannot. A budget can absorb some payments until one more recurring load removes the gap that made the whole structure resilient. This is why the inspection has to move from the surface to the beam. Not can we make the payment? What does this payment do to the load path? A strong inspection also separates one-time choices from recurring commitments. A one-time mistake can be painful, but a recurring load becomes architecture. Once it enters the monthly structure, the household starts designing around it. The payment gets normalized. The remaining gap shrinks. Future decisions become smaller because a past decision now has first claim on the beam. That is why recurring payments deserve more suspicion than their monthly number suggests. The danger is not only the amount. The danger is permanence. A payment that repeats quietly can do more structural damage than a dramatic purchase people would immediately notice. The car decision makes the load path visible. A $70,000 SUV and a $28,000 used sedan can both solve the same transportation problem. One has better leather, smoother doors, a badge that feels good, and the kind of presence people notice. The other mostly disappears into the background. The difference is not only $42,000 at purchase. The difference is what that $42,000 could have carried. If the money stays inside the structure, it can become an emergency fund, investment capital, debt reduction, flexibility, or time. If it becomes visible finish, it may still create comfort or pride, but it no longer carries the same future load. Monthly payments make the point even stronger.
A $700 car note feels normal because the number is sliced into monthly units. It becomes part of the household air. It is evaluated as, can we handle $700 this month? But structurally, that payment is not a monthly mood. It is a load path. $700 a month for years is not just transportation. It is money that cannot reinforce the beam anywhere else. Over decades, that stream can become a six-figure or even larger structural difference, depending on time and return. Again, this does not mean nobody should ever buy a nice car. It means the car is not just a car. It is a structural decision wearing lifestyle clothing. Every recurring payment has two values. The first is the service it buys now. The second is the structure it prevents later. When people ignore the second value, they think they are choosing between basic and premium, old and new, boring and impressive. Mechanically, they may be choosing between reinforcement and decoration. The same pattern shows up in housing, subscriptions, storage units, private school choices, renovations, convenience services, travel habits, and every commitment that becomes normal after the first month. The payment that feels manageable in isolation can become dangerous in a stack. One payment rarely breaks the wall. The stack breaks the wall. A larger lease, a car note, a few premium memberships, a vacation financed because the year was stressful, a home project paid over time, a new device on installments. None of them feels like collapse. Each one feels like life. But the beam does not care how reasonable each load felt emotionally. It only knows total weight. This is where lifestyle inflation becomes difficult to see. It rarely announces itself as a collapse. It arrives as reasonable upgrades after reasonable progress. A little more space, a little better car, a few conveniences that reduce friction, better restaurants because work is stressful, better travel because the family deserves memories. Each decision can be defended alone. The load-bearing question is what the whole stack does together. If the stack removes the gap, the household has traded future optionality for present smoothness. That trade may be worth it sometimes, but it should be seen clearly. Smoothness is not the same as strength. The second half of the problem begins when money actually arrives.
Most people assume the danger is only not earning enough. Once income rises, they expect the structure to fix itself. But higher income does not automatically thicken the beam. It only increases the amount of material available. The household still has to decide where the material goes. That is where upgrades matter. An upgrade is not good or bad because it is expensive. It is good or bad because of what it does to carrying capacity. Some upgrades are visible and weak. They increase the surface area of the lifestyle while adding new loads to the wall. Other upgrades are invisible and strong. They reduce friction, protect earning power, improve recovery, prevent bad decisions, or make idle money productive. They do not impress anyone, but they reinforce the system. A better mattress can be structural if sleep is the bottleneck that affects work, patience, health, and decision quality. It does not look like wealth from the street, but it may carry more load than a visible purchase twice its price. An emergency fund is structural because it prevents one surprise from becoming debt at the worst possible moment. It is boring cash sitting in reserve. It does not create a story. But when pressure arrives, it keeps the wall from cracking. A full employer match is structural because it is immediate return that disappears if ignored. It will not change the house. It will not change the car. Nobody will compliment it. But it is a beam people often leave unused because it feels less exciting than money they can see. Automation is structural because it removes timing and emotion from the transfer. If surplus has to wait for motivation, the lifestyle will usually spend first. If the transfer happens before the household negotiates with itself, the beam thickens quietly. High-yield cash is structural because idle money should not rot in a dead account. The difference may look small month to month, but structure is often built from small differences that repeat without drama. These are not glamorous moves. That is why they work. They do not require applause to be rational. They only have to carry load. The hard part is that structural upgrades often feel emotionally smaller than decorative ones. Moving cash to a better account feels like administration. Increasing a retirement contribution feels like less money available now. Keeping the car longer feels like delay. Building a buffer feels like nothing happened.
But the financial system rewards repeated invisible transfers more than it rewards visible intensity. A household does not need one heroic decision if it has a few structural defaults that keep running. The beam is built by the things that continue when nobody is inspired. So the practical inspection is simple. Take 1 month of your financial life and trace the load path. Start with income. Do not ask whether the number is impressive. Ask where it goes after it enters the house. How much becomes fixed load before the month begins? How much becomes flexible spending that expands under stress, boredom, or social pressure? How much reaches cash reserves, investments, debt reduction, or skills that increase future capacity? Then mark each recurring payment as either structural or decorative. Structural does not mean joyless. It means the payment increases capacity, protects downside, or supports something essential enough to justify the load. Decorative does not mean evil. It means the payment mostly improves appearance, comfort, status, or convenience without strengthening the system. A healthy financial life can include decoration. A house can have paint, but paint cannot replace the wall. The danger is when decorative load consumes structural material, and the household mistakes the improved surface for strength. This is why the most useful question is not, do I deserve this? You probably deserve many things. The useful question is, what does this do to the beam? Does it thicken the gap or thin it? Does it reduce future fragility or create a new fixed claim? Does it protect earning power or consume the dollars that would have protected it? Does it turn income into structure or income into appearance? The answer does not have to be moral. It has to be honest. That honesty is especially important after a raise. A raise feels like permission because the old life has already been proven affordable. The extra money feels available. But a raise is also fresh structural material. If it is assigned before it is felt, the household can become stronger without feeling deprived. If it is absorbed into lifestyle immediately, the new income becomes the new baseline, and the beam may stay exactly the same size. This is why the first decision after new income arrives matters so much. It tells the system what kind of house is being built, one with better finishes only, or one with a stronger wall behind them. Because financial pressure eventually performs the inspection people avoid.
A job loss, a medical bill, a market decline, a family obligation, a broken car, a rent increase, a tired body, a burned-out mind. Pressure reveals what was structural and what was only decorative. The surface may have looked beautiful, but the roof is carried by the wall. And in money, the wall is the part nobody sees. The protected gap, the avoided payment, the claimed match, the automated transfer, the cash buffer, the boring choice repeated long enough to become strength. Appearance asks what can be seen. Infrastructure asks what can carry weight. The wealthy-looking household may have impressive paint. The ordinary-looking household may have the wall. And when the load arrives, paint does not hold the roof. The load-bearing wall does. That is the quiet advantage, not louder wealth, not prettier proof. A structure that keeps standing when attention moves somewhere else. The goal is not to remove every visible pleasure. The goal is to know which invisible member must stay protected first, always.